I really can't play with a pick. I never actually learned how to play.
Even if you
And
tried, you don't think you could play with a pick.
even if I try, I don't think I will be ever able to do the things I do with fingers. I just thought that every guitar was meant to be played like that. I was too lazy to restart again because I was too used to play like that. But
So
my
sometimes it's
father,
good to be lazy.
sometimes it's great to be lazy. Yeah.
Greetings and welcome back to another interview right here on Cassius Morris Official. As you guys can see, I'm still out here on the road, headed to the next destination, but we had to jump back into some music interviews, and today it's an honor to be joined by Matteo Mancuso, one of the top up-and-coming guitarists in the game right now. We spoke on how he developed his trademark finger-picking sound, along with learning guitar from his father, who was a guitar legend back in Italy. There was a lot to discuss, and it was awesome to have Matteo on the show. So without further ado, let's hop into the interview with Matteo Mancuso.
Matteo, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks. You? Everything's good?
Going great, man. Thank you so much for making some time today, getting ready and prepping for the first headline tour of North America. So talk to us about it. I mean, you're finally bringing your music coast to coast. What did it really take to bring this vision to life and make this happen now?
Well, we really had to work on a lot of things. First of all, it's wonderful that we had the chance to uh, have so many gigs. It's the first time that we have like 31 concerts, I think. So it's the longest
Wow.
tour I've done so far, and I think it will be pretty great. We will learn a lot, both with my team, my trio, and the guys that are following me, and I think it will be a great experience, musical and live so far. And I think what we want to achieve is, first of all, um, the concert will be pretty much around my first album. So most of the compositions are taken from the first album that came out in 2023. But we have a couple of new songs ready for this tour because we wanted to refresh a little bit the repertoire. Because
Okay.
most of the songs I recorded for the first album are very old. Like some of the songs I played them since 2019,
Right.
um, and it started to become a little bit boring, always playing the same stuff. So we decided, okay, we need to really refresh uh, some songs, maybe using some different arrangements and also um, trying to make things differently every night. I'm a big fan of improvising music, so um, I really want to take my time to be sure that every night is special, and we don't do the same thing every night. Especially
Yeah.
now that you have everything available on Spotify, it's important that the live version needs to be different from the CD, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just stick to Spotify. There's no point to come into a live show if it's the same thing as the CD. So I'm a big fan of proposing maybe the same stuff, but with a different arrangement, different solos, different parts as well. We are a trio, so there are not many elements on the
Right.
stage. So we are always trying to find some cool arrangements to do.
And that's a very conscious process, it sounds like, for you guys, that you're consciously trying to switch it up and keep it from becoming mundane. Is that, something that is actually discussed in the room, or is it just something you guys keep at front of mind?
Well, I think it's both. In the more improvised songs, like let's say the more jazzier kind of songs, we tend to, let's say, let it go and not just think about how long it will be or, how the structure it is. We just want to relax a little bit because, of course, there are also a lot of songs where you have obligatos and where you have like a strict structure but I like to have both elements, like the obligato stuff, let's say the written stuff, and the more
Yeah.
improvised stuff during my concert. And we work on that a lot. I mean, we see each other with my trio for 1 week before this tour starts, just to, replay some of the songs doing some different arrangements. And it's always fun because I like to challenge myself with some different things. I really don't like to play always the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like switching it up is incredibly important. So who exactly do you have in the band for the tour?
Well, first of all, they are Gianluca Pellerito on drums and Riccardo Oliva on the bass. And they are both from Palermo in Sicily, like me, but they currently live in Milan. So I'm the only one that stays in Palermo. And when we record, they took the plane. I have a studio in Palermo, and we always go there because it's free, of course, it's mine. So
Right. Works
we
out.
have plenty of time to, rather than, booking a different studio and we have limited time, I prefer to always record everything in my studio. And we luckily have everything we need there. So I came to know Ricardo, the bass player, back in 2016. So we know each other for a really long time. And then I came to know Gianluca thanks to Ricardo. They were playing in some different projects and they were always playing together. So it's very important, I think, that your rhythm section is playing also on different environments, not only on your project, because they help them grow a lot if they play some different music from mine also. And one of the reasons I choose these two guys is that they have so much synergy to each other. And I think in order to, let's say, judge a rhythm section, you need to always judge the two of them, not just one on one. It's almost like football teams. You can have like the most incredible names on every field, but if there's no chemistry, the
Yeah.
football team is not gonna work.
That's what makes or breaks it.
Yeah. So that's why I choose to play with them. We started playing together, I think, at the beginning of 2023. No, sorry, it was September 2023. We did a couple of gigs before, but we actually started playing more starting from September 2023. And it's beautiful because, they know me very well. They know my tastes. They know my licks and my phrases. So whenever I play some of the stuff, they always follow me in a really good way. And I like this kind of people. I like really interact with the rhythm section in a really deep way. And these guys are amazing.
From what I've read up on about you, music has really been your life since the beginning. I mean, talk to me about some of the earliest moments of this. Is music something that you always just remember being in the picture, or is there a certain point in your childhood that you remember it sort of took hold and became more important to you?
Well, it became more important over time, that's for sure. But
Okay.
I don't remember a time where music was not around. Like it was always there, but I just started late, let's say. I started when I was 10 years old, but music was there from the start. So I was already listening to a lot of rock stuff. I started as a rock oriented player. I fell in love with AC/DC and Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, all the classic rock bands. And Jimi Hendrix was actually my first big influence. And they were mostly American guys. If I remember correctly, Jimmy is from Seattle, so
Hmm.
the most of the uh, influences I had back in time were American-oriented influences, let's say, and
Right.
British-oriented influences. Um, And I have to thank my father because of that, because more than a teacher, he was kind of a listening guide to me. Like he was always telling me, oh, okay, you should listen to this one, you should listen to this other guy. And I discovered a lot of stuff in a really fast way from the start, thanks to my father. And he was always, I mean, my father is still one of the best players I know. And I'm not saying this because it's my father. I'm saying this because I listen almost every day, and it's incredible how many things I discover. Although I listen to him from a very long time, he always has something new to show to me, and it's wonderful. It's been part of my. I consider myself extremely lucky because of that, because I got the chance to grow in a really fast way from the start. So it does help to have this kind of musical family. And back when I started, I thought it was normal. But then I, you know, discovered the world, and I immediately realized how lucky I was back when I started, because many people don't have this kind of help from their family from the start, let's say.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love the fact that you talk about your father being sort of like a listening guide as well for you, because, I think back to the years we're talking about being similar in age, how we came from the end of the CD era and sort of the little lull period before the streaming era, where you could still discover a lot of stuff in person, and people were still using flash drives or even making each other mixtape CDs. Do you feel like there's been a very tangible feeling when it comes to the shift in music culture before that streaming era? Is that something you could speak to as a musician yourself?
Well, I think that some things in music will never change, no matter how the technology will go forward. I think that the best things I discovered were by word, like listening to, let's say, talking with a guy at the conservatory or talking with another friend at the music school. And he told me, oh, you should check out this player, or you should check out this band. And I discovered most of the music I like thanks to the dialogue between other players or other friends that were passionate about music like me. And so I think that some things will never change. There's for sure a difference between the previous generation and the generation I'm part of. Like, for example, if I compare myself to my father when he was 28, for example, he knew less music than me now, simply because internet was not available and Spotify was not available. But he knew in a deeper way the few CDs he had and the few vinyls he had. Because let's say if you only have five CDs available at home, you know these five CDs very well. But
Yeah.
if you have available 200 CDs, you kind of know all the CDs, but not in a deep way, let's say. So that's why I always say that quality over quantity, it's always the right way to listen to music. Like, just pick up the artist that you like to listen the most and go really in deep with their repertoire. I think it's a better way to internalize um, this kind of stuff, especially if you want to integrate some of their ideas as a musician and as a guitar player too. Yeah.
Now, let's touch on a little bit of the learning process and the training process with your father in the early days. I mean, clearly you're well known for your very unique technique when it comes to guitar and the finger picking. Is that something that you picked up through lessons from your father, or was there a point where your father showed you techniques and then you sort of drifted off into your own thing?
Well, we have, of course, some differences compared to the technique. Like, my father can also play with fingers, but he can also play with a pick. And I really can't play with a pick. I never actually learned how to play.
Even if you
And
tried, you don't think you could play with a pick?
even if I try, I don't think I will be ever able to do the things I do with fingers. It will be impossible. And that's because I never actually take the time to learn it, because I really don't like to have something in my hands while I'm playing. I really like the feeling of just playing with fingers. And that was because was always my father that was playing at home a lot of classical guitar. And back when I was 10 years old, I didn't know that you should use a pick for electric and fingers with classical. So I just thought that every guitar was meant to be played like that. But my father also played with the pick with the electric guitar, and he was a very well-known session musician back in the 80s and 90s, especially in Italy. He worked with a lot of incredible artists. So he was able to play with the pick and fingers. Um, but me myself, back when I started, I felt immediately that fingers were, let's say, I I felt more comfortable just playing with my fingers from the start. And back when I discovered about the pick, I was too lazy to restart again because I was too used to play like that I didn't want to relearn again all the thing, you know? So
Right.
because of laziness, I didn't really um, never learn how to play properly with the pick, let's say. But
So
my
sometimes it's
father,
good to be lazy.
sometimes it's great to be lazy, yeah, but uh, I have to say my father plays fingerstyle in a really different way compared to mine. Like we have a similar technique when it comes to playing in a classical way, like using your thumb and all these fingers. But I can also use this kind of bass technique where I hold my thumb on the last string or on the pickup and I play the other strings with just these three fingers. And this is a technique that my father doesn't use. He only plays, let's say, in a more classical way. Um, but yeah, we have a lot of differences. We have different players, but I stolen a lot of licks from him. So we have a lot of things in common. Yeah.
And how has that relationship evolved over the years? I mean, coming from being a beginner musician under your father's wing, now obviously, rising up in the ranks yourself, being credited for pushing the guitar game forward and being compared to the likes of Petrucci, Vai. I mean, this is big stuff. Is this something that you guys could have expected? And how does your father really react? Is it really just the same relationship, or are there any differences?
Well, he he's incredibly happy for sure that all these things are happening to me, and he's incredibly positive about it, and he's always happy. But it's not the kind of guy that is always doing compliments, you know. He's always trying to, of course, pick up the positive things, that's for sure, but it's always trying to do, let's say, a positive criticism to what I do. Like, oh, you should be listening to this, or you should be better doing this one instead of this. And he's always trying to improve the way I view music and the way I work. And for example, one of the latest things I'm working on is the compositional side of things. I was always really concentrating on the instrument that sometimes I just didn't work on the other things. And the compositional side of things is something I'm working on in the last few years. Let's say that the last year and this one as well is more concentrated on the compositional side of things rather than the playing side. And that was also thanks to my father because he was always telling me, okay, you can play, you have your own vocabulary, you have your own stuff going on, but you need to concentrate yourself also on other things. And so he is always trying to suggest me the right thing to do on the right time. And of course, I'm really grateful for that because he has so much experience that I always listening to him. And back when, let's say, the recognition came more, I think it was back in 2020 where I was able to do more videos. Thanks to the pandemic, we were all at home, and I was able to, let's say, be more proficient on the internet side of things. Um, and that was when I, let's say, realized, okay, I can push more on this kind of stuff, and let's see if people are interested in my music. And that's how the first album came out. But I consider myself incredibly lucky because I played with some of my guitar heroes. I had the chance to play with Aldi Miola, for example, back in 2022. I had the chance to play with Steve Vai last year at the Steve Vai Academy in Orlando. Had the chance to play with Tommy Emmanuel. In the first time was in 2023 in Palermo, and then we had a camp, Tommy Emmanuel camp in Rome a couple of days ago, and it was wonderful. We played some songs together as well. So everything that is happening is incredibly positive and it's inspiring as well. It pushes me to study more because sometimes I feel the pressure of like have all these guitar players that are talking about me. So it somehow pushes me to work more on my material. Yeah.
So it really adds fuel to that fire, and it really makes you want to evolve your craft and continue upping the ante, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that what I have to say, especially compositionally speaking, and people tend to concentrate a lot on my technique, and let's say my way of playing, because there are a lot of videos and there are a lot of material of me playing in different ways, let's say. But there's no a lot of material compositionally speaking, because I just did one album, and I would like to be more proficient on the compositional side, because I feel like I can express myself better if I do some original stuff rather than doing just covers. And I did covers for a long time. It should help me a lot to grow and be aware of how to play different styles, and that for sure is helping you um, a lot for your growth. But of course, I feel like it's the right time to go out with a lot of compositional material. That's why I don't do covers anymore. I don't feel like it's the right thing to do now. Yeah.
Right. As you become, a more established artist in your own right, it doesn't really make sense, I guess, to keep going with the covers. So where are you looking for inspiration for the composition? I mean, is there specific artists, or is it just something that you have independently in your own mind?
Well, it's not something that I have independently on my own mind for sure. I'm really, let's say, influenced by everything I listen. And one thing that I like to do, especially in the few years, I don't want to listen only to guitar-oriented music, for example, because one thing that guitar players we do a lot is listening only to our colleagues, let's say. And if you listen only to guitar players, you will have only one perspective on music that's too much guitar oriented for me. So I really like to listen a lot of my colleagues, and especially the modern ones. I really like Jack Gardiner, for example. He's a wonderful player. I really like Antoine Boyer. He's a gypsy player from France that I really like. And there are, a lot of players. Max Ostrov, for example, from Russia, is a phenomenal player as well. There are tons of guitar players that I like, and I listen to their music as well. But sometimes I prefer to just listen to music that is not on this guitar world, let's say, just to have a different perspective and to internalize some things that are not guitaristic. And I really like to listen to South American music, for example, in the latest years. I discovered, for example, Alcaseca Trio that it's a trio from Argentina. There are wonderful players, yeah, guitar, piano, and drums, and they all three sing as well, and they have a beautiful
Oh, wow.
voice. Yamandu Costa, for example, is another Southern American player that I like. He's Brazilian. Um, and a couple of more things that I like to listen. Also, for example, Nowhere. They are a band based on Los Angeles with Lewis Cole on drums. They are more on the, let's say, um, electric side of things, like more drum and bass based ideas, let's say. But I really like to listen stuff where there isn't even a guitar, let's say. So I always try to borrow a lot of ideas from different worlds and different artists as well. I'm trying to um, be as wide as possible with my compositional ideas. I don't want to say that I don't like this kind of music. I like more this kind of music. I think
Yeah.
that in every genre there's good and bad music. Like even on the, let's say, I don't know, the trap scene that many people say that it's bad. I don't think there's 100% bad on every genre, let's say. There will be that, like, let's say 10% of good trap music, let's say.
Exactly.
Or there will be that small percentage of genre of music that you will like. It's just that you have to search, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to do some digging. I love that. Real quick, the one thing that strikes me about you is that you're very much true to your craft and, the traditional guitar playing, rock, even jazz. But on that same note, you're very much modern and current with the current social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, etc. How do you balance those two things? Because it seems like sort of two alien worlds somewhat colliding, but you're making it make sense.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out a balance for that because I'm not really that proficient on the social media side of things. Because I don't really like to use them actually. I just use them because I know that right now, if you are a musician, you need to have social medias.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing I just see it as work. And but of course you have to do it. There are some people that are really proficient at that. They do maybe one video per week. They are really present. They do stories and all of that. I'm more on the I don't like, for example, to uh, publish, uh, let's say, material about my life or intimate things. I just like to share the musical stuff and let my private life not be on social media. But that's just the way I see it. A lot of people are fusing the two things, and I don't necessarily like that kind of stuff, even if they have more interaction, more views,
Hmm.
and more of everything. But I don't like to share too much of my private life, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to use it in a better way because I'm not, as I said before, I'm not that proficient. I like to, study, doing my own thing, and maybe publish a video every now and then. But I'm not
Yeah.
really that kind of guy that has a schedule of, oh, today I have to do two stories and one video. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not that prepared. Yeah.
Right. But part of managing it for you is just sort of taking it at your own pace. And again, like you said before, it's quality over quantity.
Yeah, it's always quality over quantity on a lot of things. And I always prefer, as I said before, always publish your own material in the long run. It's gonna be the right thing to do, even if you are at the start of your career. Always try to push your own original material.
Hopping over to our next interview, it was a pleasure to be joined by Maggie and Natasha, representing Forgo Foreclosure out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This company really caught my eye when they spoke on not just wanting to run a business, but actually wanting to help people in the world of real estate. It was an honor to get to speak with Maggie and Natasha, two strong businesswomen out of Canada, and I hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as I did.
My name is Maggie, Magdalena, but I go by Maggie everyday life. Originally from Poland. I was born there, moved to Greece for 5 years with my parents. It was kind of the transition part to get into Canada. So we lived there for 5 years and then we flew to Canada, to Ontario, Hamilton, out of all places. Lived there for 6 months while my parents kind of got situated. And then we came to Calgary and we've been to Calgary, like in Calgary ever since. So Calgary, Alberta. My past, I guess, has been construction my entire life. So when I was a kid, I wanted a cell phone, and my dad said that's not a problem, but you have to go get a job to pay for it. So I was 13, and I remember I had to lie to Subway telling them I was 14 because I was under the legal age of working. But I really wanted that phone. So I worked there for 4 years. That was my first job. I ended up managing all four of their locations by the time I was 18. Then I switched to another job just for a few months. And then I got hired. Somebody approached me to hire at a flooring store, and I was the install coordinator there. So that's how I kind of got into construction and just interior design. I got into flipping. I worked with my ex husband. He built homes for a living. He was also a contractor. So I kind of started doing that, and I enjoyed kind of showcasing my design or my style with spec houses. So I didn't work for clients. I worked kind of with whatever I wanted to do and what I thought would appeal to people, which was not the cookie cutter builder stuff that we saw.
Right.
I tried to stay unique. I tried to stay, when everyone was doing still like those beige walls, beige cabinets, I was trying to do white cabinets, like kind of,
Mm.
and just experimenting. Like I did weird colors. I would do blue and green, and that was like a no back then. Like this was 2002, 2003. that was all beige and brown floors, right?
Right.
And golden oak cabinets still at that point. So I was doing like black counters and white cabinets and gray floors, and people were like, wow, this actually looks really good. I was actually in furniture sales as well. And one of my biggest fears was rejection. So selling was always a no for me because I take rejection very personally. But I started this job and I was going through a divorce and I wasn't working because it was COVID. And, my legal battles with my ex weren't helping me in my situation in child support, and he wasn't working and stuff like that. So I had a friend who was a real estate agent, but he was also the GM for a big furniture store here in Calgary. And he's like, listen, these girls are making like 10, 12 grand a month, easy, Megs. Like, you should try this. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. And the first month I was there, I sold 150,000 worth of furniture, and my commissions were 6%. So
Wow.
I was doing actually really well. And I didn't sell anything, but I built relationships. Like, I'm still friends with a lot of the customers I sold to. When I worked there, I left that company for Natasha's company. She was a dear friend of mine who I met with through my ex boyfriend, and we hit it off. She's European, I'm European. She's got 2 kids and a husband. She's very successful, and I was like, I looked at her. I remember meeting her after her first few times, and she was so down to earth. And I was like, I looked at my partner and I was like, I want to be her when I grow up at the
I love
time.
that.
So I was like, I want to like slay like she does, like she just like does everything. She has like kids. She's got like 10 businesses. She's just like successful. She's always got her stuff in order. I'm like, how do you like do this? Like I swear to you not. Yesterday Natasha was in a different province. I have not talked to the woman in 12 hours, and today she's in BC. I'm like, where are you? Like I don't even know where you are half the
Where's
time.
Natasha
But
today?
so I guess I'll let Natasha take over from here and tell you guys about herself.
All right. That was awesome, Maggie. Yeah, so that's how we met. You know what? And Maggie's a dear friend of mine, and we've now known each other for many years, worked together, hang out with each other when we have time. We're busy. Being mothers alone is just a busy schedule. Work, then add real estate into the equation, furniture, everything and anything you can think of. One of the biggest things that I loved about, and Maggie didn't really touch on it, is the relationships that she builds with people, right? With her ability not just to sell, it's her ability to really get to know everyone. And I saw that the first time I met her. I said, you know what? I didn't know this girl at all. We sat and had some Vietnamese food, and she was an open book. She was so honest that I was like, wow. She says, I don't like to cold call. I'm not going to cold call. I'm not going to be out there knocking on doors. She's like, but if I get leads in the door, I can sell. And I was like, wow, I never have people where you interview them and they'll tell you not their weaknesses, but they'll tell you what they don't like to do and what they're not good at. Well, that was Maggie. And sure enough, brought her in, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Since then, I sold the business. We've obviously remained friends. And, we've taken on different tasks, different roles, different businesses. And one of the things right now that is lacking in Alberta is basically what we found is a niche for people to say, we have a property, we need to rent it, and we need an executive rental. We need somebody to come and take care of everything, basically from A to Z. And clients that can call us and say, you know what, we need a place with, these are the criteria. This is what we need, whether it's concierge service, not just that it's fully furnished, absolutely everything. Because there's a lot of companies out there that need somebody to basically, it's not just finding a home to live. There's a lot of different components. And because of the industry that we're in and the connections that we have, we're able to pull from all of those things and get them a mover if they need a moving, quote, get them tickets to Flames games if they need tickets. Whatever the case may be, we have those contacts to get them in touch and to be able to facilitate all of it. So, that's one of the things we're doing now on top of, real estate and trying to just, navigate in this crazy world that we're living in and trying to, keep up to speed with everything that's going on and, really just excelling at, the big thing is the customer service, the relationships, going above and beyond. And Maggie and I are cut from the same cloth. I always say that we expect more from ourselves than what anyone else could expect from us. Right? That's
Yeah.
just the way we are. So, that's really what we're up to.
I love that. No, and that's a big deal as well to view it that way. Now, one of the main themes that we're hearing mentioned in this conversation is, of course, compassion when it comes to business, and the fact that it's not profit first; it seems to be people first across all the projects that you folks are doing. So, maybe speaking on that, how do you balance affordability and compassion while still running a profitable business? Maybe starting with Maggie.
So for me, I think, okay, so here's my mindset. Like, I did not grow up with money. My parents are Polish. We moved to Canada. They didn't know the language. I mean, my favorite part of growing up in Canada was shopping at Value Village, and I was grateful for it. Just shopping alone. I did not grow up in a household where I had 20 presents on Christmas morning to wake up or Christmas Eve because we celebrated Christmas Eve Catholic. So we always, had dinner with the family. It was all family oriented, whereas here I find in Canada or just in North America in general, like things are very materialistic. Like the expectations are so high to have everything, have an abundance of everything, have two vehicles. Oh, now you have two, now it's not enough. Like I think I was telling you before the podcast, you make your first 50 grand, it's not enough. You make 100 grand, oh wait, that becomes not enough anymore. You got to make two. Well, okay, so you're gonna die rich. That's cool. But what's your legacy? Are your kids gonna remember if you were there, at their baseball game or their soccer game or the hockey game, or were you busy slaying and getting the millions? Like how much money do you really need for the 65 to 85 years realistically that we're going to live? Like, is $1 million not enough? Is 10 million not enough? Like we're just so conditioned. Like society in general now is, you look at society and it's like this house and it's got to be on the lake and it's got to be all custom and it's got to be like this. And like when I go back home to Poland, I always cry when I leave there, when I go see my family, because I'm there in a house and it's actually a two-story apartment in a big house. So how they live there, my cousin Anna, who's like a sister to me, her husband's mom owns the house. It's a generational home. So it's 4 stories. And they have turned every story into an apartment. So Anna and
Wow.
Alex, they live on the top 2 stories with their 3 kids, with their snails, with their dog Nutella, who's a Bernese mountain dog, with their 4 other dogs and their cats in a tiny apartment with 1 bathroom. So when I
Wow.
go there, that's where I stay. We share a bathroom. The 6 of us share a bathroom. There's no privacy. In my opinion, privacy is a privilege. It's a bloody privilege. Like if I talk back to my dad when I was younger, I would lose the door or I would get backhanded. And that's just how I was raised. It's that European, strict, no nonsense, no bleep. I look at the houses here and I'm like, and the families here, and it's like, oh, I just bought my 7-year-old a cell phone. And I'm like, why? And you're
Yeah.
paying for that phone? Why is that a right to a 7-year-old? So, then as I mentioned to you, I walked into a foreclosure property last year. I look at this property and, the family did a midnight move and it was downtown Calgary, 17th Ave, and kids' clothes everywhere, kids' pictures that they drew for her parents, stacks of bills like this. The man owned a plumbing company. I won't say the name to protect their privacy. The mom was maybe a stay-at-home mom. Pictures of the kids everywhere, diapers, toys, food still in the fridge. And I'm sitting there and I'm walking through this house and I'm bawling my eyes out. And Taylor's with me, my real estate agent. And he's like, this is just absolute devastation because, this family, what people forget is like, they have this mentality like, oh, they didn't pay the bills. Of course, the bank took their house. Well, let's go beneath that surface a little bit and see what actually happened. In reality, they qualified for a mortgage, they put a down payment down. Banking systems here have rigorous paperwork to get a mortgage, to trust you with their money. So, what happened? Did his company go under? Did COVID happen? Does everybody forget what COVID did to our economy and small businesses, small mom and pop shops? Let's forget the corporations for now. Let's talk about the people like myself or Natasha or the contractors that we're friends with or the small little builders or the mom and pop shop down the street that's trying to open up a restaurant or this bakery. What happened to those people? Does anybody remember them? Does anybody realize what that pandemic and the mental health pandemic that it caused in turn, like the struggling? How much did domestic violence go up during COVID? What about child abuse? What about the kids that went to school with no food? Does anybody remember that, or do they just judge and be like, "Oh, these people are useless. They didn't pay their mortgage." Well, it's not that they didn't want to. When I walked through that house is when I thought, I thought of a company, and I'm like, I'm part of a big real estate network here in Calgary that is composed of 500 plus investors, which are Canada wide and US wide, and we all collaborate and work as a team, and we do deals together. So I thought, okay, so if I was the bank, like, let's get real here. The bank doesn't want to lose the money. They actually don't want to foreclose. They just want to get paid. The people don't want to lose their house. They want to pay, but they can't. The investors have the money, but it's actually really difficult to find foreclosure properties here. There's not a website here that you can go to. Like, you have to be in with the banks, you have to be in with the courts to know that. And you have to be a real estate agent. And actually, even most real estate agents don't have that luxury. They need to have those connections. So I thought, I have the connections for money. Money is not a problem to get for me to buy a property. How do I attract the market, the people? Say if they're, 3 months for being foreclosed on, they're getting eviction notices, they're getting court judgments from, RBC Bank and their lawyer. They don't know what to do. They don't have a money to defend themselves. They can't hire a lawyer. So I'm like, okay, if I can get involved, I have the team of investors. I know a ton of real estate agents. I don't have the connections to the bank, but I'll find them. How do I help the people? Because can I help them refinance? Can I help them put on a payment plan? What if I fund them for a couple months, help them find a job, and then get them back on track so they don't lose this house? Because it is in essence, it's not about the house. Say that family grew up in that house for the last 10 years. That's their entire life. That's all their kids know. So, like, think about it at that level. Like, what
Yeah.
would you feel? What would I feel if I had to move my daughter while she's sleeping in the middle of the night, put her in the car and take the one stuffy she loves, but leave everything else she adores? Like, I want to cry right now thinking of that and
Putting yourself in their
empathizing with
shoes.
my daughter. Like, if you could really sit there, close your eyes and be like, holy, like, what if this happened to me tomorrow? What would you do? Who would you turn to? So I thought of forego foreclosure. Can I market this to, you know, I actually, in fact, don't care about the investors. I love them. They're great people, but they're already millionaires and billionaires. They don't need the money. They're
They'll
looking
be
for an
fine.
opportunity. I'm going to present them with an opportunity, but I'm also going to help these people and present them options and choices because, again, I'm going to say 96% of the population, if not more, up to 98% of the population, do not know that there are options to fix the problem and a solution. So that's what I want to relate to these people. Hey, are you struggling? Are you getting notices? Is your mortgage 3 months behind? Let's not get it further. Let's not let it go
Yeah.
down another 6 months until you are faced foreclosure. Let's fix this now. How do I help you now? Because, I'm willing to bet if I offered somebody a job and if I offered them an option and a solution or found them a job from Natasha or with Natasha's husband, I'm willing to bet he would work like a dog to make up those mortgage payments and save his house and his family from moving and the devastation that his kids will feel and his wife will feel.
Right. So it's
So
it's
that's
really
kind
about
of.
the providing the opportunity and seeing past just the dollar signs and the base level of each situation. I mean, I do really admire this approach. So maybe starting with Natasha, and we spoke about this right before you joined the call, but obviously Calgary has a massive real estate scene. It's a huge part of the city and how it operates, and I would assume they operate in certain ways. What has the response been like from the real estate industry with you folks coming in and trying to do things differently? Has it been a positive response or have you faced any resistance?
Well, we haven't really faced any resistance because we haven't really, gone out there and publicly taken it to everybody. It's really been word of mouth with the people that we're working with. And it's a
Yeah.
really custom, one-on-one approach because everybody has such different needs and such different, it's really, sending the message saying, we're here to work with you. We're here to figure out what is it that you need to get to the end goal, whether it's, help you get financing, whether it's going to help you get whatever it's going to need. We're tailoring it specifically to helping you, like facilitate you to get the people that you need to make this happen, to change it. Whether it's to advise you and say, you know what, you have to talk to this individual because we're going to help you get back on track and figure out so that you have a goal and you have something to look forward to and you know how to do it, and not finding out that, you've been doing XYZ and then find out 4 months later you've been doing it incorrectly. So,
Right.
the key is to have the right people in place, and to take it slow and small, because word of mouth goes a long way. And that's the best referral that we can get from anyone on anything. It doesn't matter what business you're running. So, the feedback that we've had has been from the individuals that we're working with, and getting that phone call saying so and so referred me to you is really right now the best thing that we could ask for. The real estate market is changing. People's needs are changing very quickly, very rapidly. Everybody's on a different path. Everybody has different challenges, different kind of questions, different perspectives, different
Yeah.
incomes, everything. It's all over the map. So it's really being able to sit down and to facilitate putting people in the right direction. We don't have all the answers. We don't have, quarter of the answers. I'm not a specialist on anything. I can, though, figure out who I need to send you to and get those people, get you in touch with the right people that will give you the right advice to put this plan into place to get you to the end of to get you to the right place.
Yeah.
So that's really, the end goal here. And it's a win-win. It's a win for
Yeah.
us. It's a win for them.
Exactly. Maggie, would you agree?
I totally agree. Yeah, and I'm gonna touch base on what Natasha just said. So I am. We are not specialists in anything. I am. We are diving from. Natasha is much more knowledgeable about the market than I am because she's a real estate agent herself. I am not. I am more knowledgeable in law because that's what I study. I'm knowledgeable in construction and design because that is my life experience. So, and you know what? Schooling aside, like the life experience, and you combine all of those together, I mean, you might as well give us a master's in kind of like we know a lot about we know a little bit about a lot. We're like a jack of all trades, but a master in none. Does that make sense?
It
But
does. Yeah.
that's where she hit it. She hit the nail on the head when she said, I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to find you the right person who knows the answer. If it's a
Exactly.
lawyer, if it's a criminal lawyer you need, I'm going to get you that. If it's a real estate lawyer, I'm going to get you that. If it's a family lawyer, you're going through a divorce and you need help buying a house because you're going through a divorce and your money's tied up, I'm going to find you that. And that we do have. That we have in abundance, the right people, because we don't know everything. Like we are human, we make mistakes. I'm not always right. She's not always right. You take that, you own it, just like, we talk to somebody and they might not be right. So then we're going to lead them to that person. When it comes to forego foreclosure, when it comes to her selling houses, whether it's us partnering on, corporate keys, which is our new company. And again, I don't know, this person might come to me and a corporate executive and he needs a contract for 9 months. I want a house. I want a nanny. My kids are coming. I need a doctor. I need a personal trainer. I need a driver. Well, okay. I don't know the doctors, but I'm going to find one for you. If I have
Yeah.
to hire one for my company to be, set up and be on my payroll to help my clients because that is what they want, I'm going to get that for you. That is like that whole customizing and empathizing and understanding what their needs are and helping them. So
Yeah.
that's where, our services might come at a cheaper cost, especially with the forego foreclosure. Like I'm not making money off the customers, the clients that are losing their home. I'm going to make the money off the investor who's buying the house, and I'm taking a cut of the commission of that because he has
Exactly.
money. They don't. They're not going
Hmm.
to pay for my services. If I sell that house, I'm going to get commission for it, but not from the owners because
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to help them, right? Like the goal is, and if I can get them above and beyond what their house is worth,
Yeah.
I'm actually going to give them the rest because my help, that authenticity, that wanting to help, and always remembering at the core, this can happen to you, Maggie. So you're not
Yeah.
going to be greedy because remember, you can end up, I'm a single mom. I can get cancer tomorrow. I can get in a car accident tomorrow. I don't know. And then what? If I'm not working myself physically, my company, I don't get paid. It doesn't make any money. So I'm always very aware of that, right? And then my daughter would suffer, right? If I'm not making
Yeah.
the money, who suffers? Her. I don't care about me. I don't. If I die or live tomorrow, I've lived my life to the fullest, but I care about her and what she
Mhm.
is left with after I pass away. Her
Mhm.
life needs to be established. So, I think of that, and that is what is going to propel. I'd rather make way less. I'd rather make $10 off a deal, but get 3 million deals versus make a million off a deal and get 3 deals. Make sense?
Mm. It makes a lot of sense, and I admire the fact that you're outsourcing the capital from the people who can actually afford to give it up. Whereas, for most people, they'd be charging the families up front, they'd be doing all of this. So this is really fascinating. So maybe let me try to sort of gain some more understanding of the perspective here. We can jump over to Natasha for a moment. Obviously, I'm talking to two women who own multiple businesses and have been involved in running multiple businesses. How would you say your experience as a business owner has shaped your ability to bring ethics into an industry that rarely sees it?
Well, it's interesting because, in the business that I was a partner in, it was home staging, and there was not a lot of competition because it's a very niche business. It's not like it's a furniture store where you've got 50, 60 other stores that you are in competition with. There's very few. There was probably, I could count on one hand the competition that we had. But
Wow.
when you are running in a niche in an industry where you don't have that much competition, you have to be very mindful of the pricing to be consistent, obviously, with your competitors. And ethics comes into play when you're basically standing in front of a client and you're saying, well, you're going to pay X amount of dollars to rent this furniture, for this month, and this is what it's going to cost you. And that phone call is going to come 2 months later, and they're going to say, well, our house didn't sell. So what are you going to do? Are you charging me for another month? And that's where that whole thing comes into play of saying, okay, here's a situation. They're selling their house because of this, because we've been told this. We've been told that they're in a bad financial situation, and they've already paid for, let's say 2 months. Well, you know what? Let's give them a few more weeks. Let's give them that third month free because maybe that's going to help them, because taking it out would be a disservice, and taking that out is going to reduce their chances of selling it. Plus, they've already paid. So there were many instances, there were many times where you had to take it again, case by case. You had to look at the situation. You had to be very mindful of it, and and be lenient with those kind of things, because that's the only way that you could grow your business, and that's the only way that you're able to really get ahead and say, you know what, they gave me the reviews because they gave me those extra few weeks, and guess what, in those few weeks the house sold, and that's what
Yeah.
made me get out of the situation. So, this industry is evolving, revolving, however you want to look at it, but there's creative ways to get things done. And, the way I see it is the people that have the compassion, the people that have the mindset of we're here to help you, not looking at it
Yeah.
from dollars and cents, looking at it with the perspective of we really genuinely want to help you, is the only way that, story is the only way that I can see that, in with this market, that they're going to succeed and their
Yeah.
businesses are going to succeed, whatever it is, whether it's, real estate, being an agent, whether it's staging, whether it's mortgage broke, it's all of it encompassing. There's a lot of competitors out there now in every industry. There's a lot of different people that you can go to, and you look at what the commonality is with the people that are succeeding. It's the genuine desire to help, and it's the ones that go above and beyond their service, or they think that's their scope of work, that are succeeding.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
so true. And Maggie, I'm sure you could speak to that. And also beyond just your business experience, you had actually had experience with midnight moves yourself in the past. If I may bring that up, if you're comfortable. And just
Of
for
course.
anybody who may be wondering, midnight move is of course a move where it's not necessarily planned. This is something that would happen the same day, correct?
That's right. So, yeah, and actually, I want to touch on what Natasha said is, when your authenticity comes through, like people can genuinely feel, when somebody's in it for the money or when somebody's in it because they care. And,
Yeah.
this is how relationships and networking, it's all like how society runs. Like, if we don't have that human connection, that empathy, that understanding, that love, that compassion for everybody, when you meet them, like why who's more successful? Natasha, who's empathetic, who will literally take a phone call from her crying client at midnight, or the guy who's, yeah, he's rich, but he's like, oh, I'm off the clock at 5 o'clock. Bye. See you
Yeah.
tomorrow. Who's going to get the referrals? Who's going to be remembered? Not for the sale and the work they do, but the compassion they held for that
Yeah.
person, that individual, that situation. Right. So yeah, I have experienced midnight moves. One, in fact, it was one in my life. My ex-husband, like I said, he was into building houses. We had a real estate crash here in 2008, 2010. Guess what happened? We had multiple houses he was building. I was designing. I worked for his company. Um, and what happened was, instead of paying our mortgage, we threw the money back into his company to help sustain those houses that he was building. So our mortgage wasn't paid. And that mortgage was about 10 grand a month. That, this was in 2008. And that mortgage was $10,000 a month, which was a lot for the time. And, so that was helping the business. But guess what? That happened to us. We lost our house. We literally
Right.
had the bank knocking at our door and being served by lawyers because he was trying to sustain the company. So we actually stopped taking income. Well, he did, sorry. Stopped taking income from his company so that company that money was left in the company to try and save what he had built. And then,
Wow.
but in turn, we suffered. So our beautiful custom built house in Pritis, just outside of Calgary, which is near Bray Creek, we lost. We did a midnight move. We grabbed only the kids' clothes. We grabbed zero furniture. We didn't even grab the food. We grabbed our laptops, which had photos in it. I grabbed all my memory boxes with all the kids' birthday cards I'm a hoarder of birthday cards. So I took what was most valuable. We took the animals, we took their clothes, we took their toys. I took my clothes, he took his clothes. That's all we left with. And then
Wow.
you know what we had to do because we couldn't qualify because our credit, not our credit, his credit was ruined, not mine. We had to do a rent to own
Hmm. Okay.
because we were in that foreclosure position. We could not qualify for a mortgage, nor did we have the down payment for it. So we actually had to pay. He started doing again construction jobs just on a very small level after he lost that company. He had to go bankrupt. And then he started from the bottom again, started doing small construction jobs at first. And then kind of we had to pay, we did like lump sum payments basically. We paid, the rent was $2,500 at the time, which was very expensive for 2010.
Yeah.
Very expensive. It was a house in Parkland, in a great area here in Calgary. The house was very old. It needed a lot of work. It was
Mm.
run down. They couldn't sell it because the market was terrible. So it was actually a realtor and his dad, who was an investor, who owned it. And I still talk to the realtor and his dad. And we did a rent to own from them. So we had to put, it was $5,000 down every 3 months up until, for 2 years, up until we had a significant down payment of like 50,000 or 45,000 at the time. And then when we qualified, a bank still wouldn't give us the mortgage. We had to go with a C lender, which is a private lender. So we were paying 12% interest. Is
Wow.
that not
Okay.
insane? It was like loan shark.
So it's
So
like a
then
never-ending process that just digs you deeper and deeper, essentially, into
it
debt.
yeah, like it
Yeah.
like I mean the trickle effect of that is just so massive. It just affects everything. Like, not only did we lose the business, then we lost our house, all our belongings that we worked so hard to purchase. Then we had to do the midnight move. Then we had to renovate this house, which was in terrible shape. Like, the people who rented it before, they ripped out the railing and put it in the bonfire in the backyard. Like, the house didn't even have a railing.
What?
The grass in the front lawn was 4 feet long. There was coyotes living in the front lawn.
Oh my goodness. So it was really
Like
in poor shape when it comes to
it
like
was in
the,
horrible shape,
the
but
upkeep.
because I lived there, I was like, this is the house. I feel the good juju. I'm buying. I don't look at cosmetics. I know my talent. I know my skill. I knew what I could do with that house. Cosmetics, aesthetics mean nothing to me. And
Yeah.
Natasha will tell you the same. When her and I walk into a property where we're going to invest in, as an investor, my cap rate in Canada is 5 to 7% annually. If I invest internationally, it has to be between 10 to 12%. All I look at is the foundation, the structure, the integrity of the building, the furnace, the water, the hot water tank, and the roof. And I'm good to go. I run my numbers. It's a calculated risk. If my ROI, which means return on investment annually on my initial investment, brings me back 8 to 12%, I'll sign the deal. I don't care if that house is 100 grand, 20 grand, or 10 million. It's all about the ROI for me. And
Yeah.
and actually I have to say you're a great judge of character because your questions are really on point with what you question me versus Natasha when you're like, I'm going to talk about business. Well, I'm like, thank God he's asking her because she is like light years ahead of me with business and structure and corporate and law and like anyway, so Natasha, you go on and touch in whatever you need to on that particular
You
convo.
nailed you got it. You answered all of it. Meg, you got
So
it. You answered the whole question. You're bang on.
I really love this conversation, and I love the fact that we can bring not just business knowledge, but also just insight into the human condition and compassion, and really trying to be there for other people. I applaud what you're both doing 100%. I guess for a closing note, maybe I could give you each the floor for just a moment. What would you like people to know about where you're taking the businesses, and really maybe if there's people in Calgary who want to reach you as well, what should they know?
So I think like for us, we're gonna focus on like we mentioned, so corporate keys and forego foreclosure, they're both in kind of like the making stages. So right now our focus is building the website, getting people like getting exposure, talking to people like, hey, is this even a good idea? Like this is where we're doing our groundwork, right? So it's new, it's corporate keys, corporate is spelled with a K. We want to all encompass, that we are your service basically. Whatever you need, that's for that company. Forego foreclosure. I want to talk to people, investors. I want to get in touch with banks. Like, sit down with me. I know you don't want to lose your money, and I don't want your client to lose their house. So let's work a deal here. Will you call me before you actually send them that foreclosure or before you hit up a lawyer and let me help them? Let me help them get out of this debt because I know you guys don't want to go through this process. It's about exposure, gaining traction. Like right now, we're just doing the legwork, which is we're very early. We have to build the website. It's coded. There's a lot of data that goes behind. You hire a whole team like to build a website because it's all encompassing and it has to be from scratch. And basically, if you imagine, realtor.ca, which is a website you go to here in Canada to find a house to see what's on the market. Well, that website takes years to develop. It takes years of coding and it's always evolving and changing. And that's kind of where we are, like, starting to hire a team to basically, start building a website. And that takes months and months. So right now it's talking, it's getting the word out, appreciate you having us. It was awesome to connect with you. And that's kind of where we are, gaining traction, getting that feedback. Like, I want to know from this podcast, I'm not advertising me. I want to hear from your people to see, hey, was that a good idea what they said? Because that is what's going to propel me and Natasha to be like, this is what that person needs. Let's go do this. Let's fix what they want right now, what they need in their life. That is what we're here for. Because, when I need something, I go to Natasha. She's way smarter than I am by like a long shot, So I'm like, Natasha, what do I do in this situation? She goes, she either knows or she's like, I don't know. No, I don't know, but let me open up my Rolodex here and I'm going to find out. And vice versa. She calls me. She came across a deal the other day and it was a tenancy lease. So I know that act very well because I study law. So she's like, what do I do in this? Is this legal? Like how much notice? And I tell her, right? So we bounce. And if I don't know, I'm going to put her in touch with someone who I do know, that knows this information. And, same with you. If you text me tomorrow and you're like, hey, I need a mortgage. Do you have a mortgage broker? Of course, I'm going to send you one. Like, it's all about helping each other because when you're successful, I'm successful. When I'm successful, you're successful, right? Like it's all like, can we start uniting instead of the, the divides that I see in the community and the public? Let's start uniting. Let's start growing.
Yeah.
Let's start propelling each other up, right? Like no more of this. I'm judging you. You're not doing anything. Oh, I'm jealous of her. Why? Why are you jealous? Why don't you join her and learn from her? That's what I do with
Yeah.
Natasha. Do you
Well,
think
and,
I
and
was
that's
envious?
and I'll add something to it. Even as new businesses, I remember a friend telling me years and years ago in a totally different industry, and she says, "You know what? As soon as a new business would open and it was in the same industry that I would send them flowers and a card." And I was
Mm.
like, "Wow." And she says, "You know what? Welcoming them, they've got a new business, totally different industry." And she's like, "And you know what? They would pick up the phone and they would always call and say, 'Thank you. You're a competitor sending me flowers, welcoming me.'" Because, and you know what? She said, and that went so far because you know what? There was always things that they couldn't do that I would do. There was things that I couldn't do that they could do. And it was creating that synergy, creating that positive flow, workflow. Instead of saying, oh, it's a competitor and they're down the street and they just opened and what, oh, they're going to take away my business and they're going to take away my clients. It's no, it's being able to put trust and realizing that we're all in the same boat. We just got on at different times, got off at different times, but working together and having trust and having that compassion, being vulnerable, being able to say, hey, you know what, can you help me with this? Chances are you're going to be able to work with some really amazing people
Yeah.
and you're going to get what you need and what you want. And it's being able to not just say, oh, I got all the answers and I know. No, there's so many people that specialize in so many different things that are willing to help you without a big, price ticket, that are just willing to help you. Work with
Yeah.
one another to say, hey, you know what, let's help you.
Collaborate.
What do you need? You
Hmm.
need to buy a house. Okay, let's figure out what is it going to take? How are we going to do this? How much money do you need to make? What kind of a job do you need to qualify for, all of that, all encompassing, or, oh, I can't buy furniture. How do I do this? I've got nothing and I bought a house and now I didn't even think about that I've got to furnish this house, right? And that there are resources, there's people out there to help you. And you know what? That's what the message has to be is that, you know what? We all need to work together.
Unite. We need to
Yeah.
unite. We need to,
Yeah.
there's so much money in this world. There's enough for all of us to share. All of us. I like literally like let's unite and propel each other. I'm gonna leave it with that. Like, that's our message to everybody because that's what Natasha and I, why do you think we are so successful? I don't know where she is half the time. She doesn't answer her phone half the time. Do I ever doubt what she's doing? Never in my
Right.
life.
You know what she's
Do I
doing.
ever I don't give two. She could be doing 3 million other things that day, but I know she's got my back. I trust her. There's depth and there's loyalty, and I know we go way back. Whatever she is doing, even if she's talking about our business behind my back, I'm not there. I know she's doing this for the team. We
It's
are
all
a team.
trust,
It's
right?
all
Trust.
trust.
Yeah.
And
It's all
when it comes
trust.
to children, I'm going to leave it with, I was raised this way. When you're on a bus, because I took the bus as a kid, when you see an elderly walking, your ass moves off that seat. You are not
Yep.
sitting there anymore. And that is how her and I raise our children. Our kids do not control the remote or that TV in this house. No way, never, no how. And that's how we raised our kids. That is how I was raised. That is what the values that we are instilling. And watch us grow. Like, what do you think this is going to leave with, our kids, this legacy? They're watching everything we do.
Yeah. So it's so
So,
important for that reason. And again, that's why I really value you both taking the time to stop by and share some of your experiences with me. If anybody watching is in the Calgary area, we have all the links down below that you need to reach Maggie and Natasha. And if you need anything real estate related, we have the two best in the city right here on the line. So make sure to connect with them. And thank you both
thank
so much for
you.
your time again. We
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate it.
We
Thank
love
you.
you and we support you. And I mean, anything to propel and support each other, and really appreciate you having us on.
And that's it for today's double interview right here on Cassius Morris Official. For all the links you guys need to connect with my guests, make sure to click down below in the description. We have their social media, their websites, and whatever they happen to be promoting. And also make sure to show some love on my social media, which is down below as well. It's going to be an awesome month of interviews. We have them all lined up back to back, as well as more content from Thailand and beyond. I'm about to leave soon, so let me know where I should travel to next and deliver you guys more content.